Hey, bud.
I've missed you. I kind of fucking hate Reels for the fact of no notifications, and living your best life in Europe means that you're not really. This hasn't really been top of mind, unfortunately. So I'm here now. I found your short. Quite like the idea of the 1 minute, fitting it in and make sense with mental state and stuff. I'm definitely going to keep to longer uploads for the fact of I like taking my time to describe things, and being rushed and stuff, I think would make my stuff a lot worse, no matter what mental state I'm in. Fuck. Well, I don't know what to say. I'm fucking living my best life right now. Like, oh my god. I thought it would take a long time for me to get used to European life. Like, it's such a different culture out here. There's a lot of different things that are surprising me that I would never have thought of, right? Like, just like, oh, everything's closed on Sundays. There's just a lot of little things like that that I are a different culture, and like I'm realizing more and more the depth of that word culture, because it's thrown around so much, but it rarely is given a good definition, and examples always are looked at in terms of traditions and art. And I would say 95%, if not more, of culture is not that. So it's quite interesting, and I just in my own right have felt quite settled here. Like I'm enjoying myself. Not settled to the point of like I'm staying here. Don't worry. I'm finding my way back to Canada. But I'm not. I never got a wave of homesickness. I never, not really. So yeah, I've been spending my weekends traveling to as many cities as possible. First weekend was Munich with my family, which was so fun. It was just massive beer gardens. They sold beer by the liter, which was your normal way of drinking it. You like it was a beautiful town. I stayed. We were mainly in Old Town, so we only saw like a very small part of the city. So like it's like seeing only like up like downtown Kelowna, uptown area, right? Like it's obviously going to be the most beautiful, the most fun, the most vibrant areas. So of course I'm getting a very specific perspective. But I like, oh my god, so much fun. And then Vienna was very different. Like I quite liked Vienna, but I got so much less of a welcoming vibe that I got from Munich and from Graz, the city I'm in. Like I got very much the same welcoming vibe that you would get going into most Canadian cities of just, hey, how you doing? People being friendly. Vienna gave me a lot more of that big city. I have bigger things to deal with. Get out of my way vibes. And I think it was less of the types of vibes like that you get from Vancouver and Toronto, where people are just busy and running around. Is more of a tightness, like a status of being Viennese, just like the status of being Parisian, right, of being from Paris. So that was quite interesting to experience. 90% of the tourist things to do were all museums going into the history. Like that was all you did as a tourist. Like that was all that I was able to find. It was museums and eating. So like that also added another vibe of like uptightness and like proudness of history, um, which I guess I'm saying in such a negative tone, because I think I value that friendliness more. But it was still a fucking amazing city to see. Like there was so much cool stuff. I met up there with two friends who just graduated and they're on their grad trip, so they just spent a few weeks in Greece, and it's fun to hang out with them for the weekend and just take the 2 hour train up and sit, take a hostel and relax and hang out. So, like, the idea of like I've been traveling every weekend, and I would thought at this point I would be tired. I would be looking for rest because I'm working during the week and all this stuff. But I feel just so invigorated. I have energy to do stuff. Maybe it's a change of baseline from what Prez was, of where every waking moment is inundated of responsibility, which right now isn't. Like, absolutely, I still have responsibilities now. I have tons, but comparatively, it's nothing. And I realize that that change of baseline for me has helped me immensely in terms of being more adultish, right? Like when I first moved to university, the idea of having to go on all these errands, all this stuff that I have to do, felt like a lot. Felt like too much. Not too much, but just felt like a lot that I had to do. And it feels less like a lot now. It feels normal. It feels easy. It feels like less like chores and more just part of life. And I think it's because I went from a much larger amount to a much smaller amount, putting in perspective of what the world actually is. So that's kind of cool. I'm hoping that sticks around. Allows me to be more of a well-rounded individual and more of a productive member of society and less of a lazy bitch that I often can be. This last weekend, I got back from Zagreb in Croatia last night. It wasn't anywhere close to where we were going to have our Europe tour, so it didn't really feel like a Europe tour revenge tour for me. But probably if I head down to Split or Dubrovnik for a weekend, then I'll be able to kind of treat it as such. And that was also like a very interesting city. And it held different perspectives for me. Like I don't know, like I could have had these perspectives with Germany, being German, but like I don't have any connection to German side. Like I have nothing other than just some of the food my parents eat. But with like my Balkan side, I'm saying it as such, not my Serbian side. Uh, I have at least a connection with my father, who at least knows the language, knows the culture. My grandpa was the one who immigrated from Serbia, right? Like, it's a lot closer than Germany, even though it still feels miles away comparatively to my Scottish side. So it was quite interesting to me, and I know the massive differences between all the countries there. But there were so many similarities for the area of Croatia I was in, and all the stuff I was described of Serbia. Um, it felt cool to explore the language and the dishes, like the massive amounts of cevapcici and rajak. Rajak, yeah, I think it's uh, what the fuck it's called. The based like schnapps. It's one of the liqueurs out there. Burak and a bunch of the dishes and a bunch of that type of stuff. Like it felt like some of it I'd grown up with, others obviously not. Some of it was very much a Croatian thing, but others Yugoslavic. So it was a very different type of trip. It was less of a Vienna type of running from spot to spot, trying to see everything, all the palaces and stuff, because there's less of that. Like we could have done it in like 6 hours and finish quote unquote the city. So me and two of the other guys who are here from Waterloo just decided to enjoy the town. Just sit at a cafe and just people watch. Just try to, like, at least myself, I tried my best to see the differences on how people acted and dive deeper in that culture aspect. Um, One thing I realized in like as I've been trying to fight with German out here, I'd say 80% of people out here speak English. And like me trying to speak German has didn't really elicit any reaction. It was just like maybe like a little bit of a smile, like, oh, he's trying, right? But swap to the English and nothing really too much. Like it was just like, okay, cool, swap to English. Like there wasn't much of a reaction. But me trying to speak Croatian out there was such a different reaction. And it wasn't and I think I knew it was gonna happen with my knowledge of just how a lot of different countries and their cultures work and what I've experienced myself. but it was of almost a deep gratitude of trying. I had not come across a single Croatian that I interacted with that did not speak English. Everyone spoke English, even more so than in Germany or Austria, obviously. And so that one I found a little bit interesting. I would have expected a lower percentage. Obviously, I didn't interact with as many people, so I may have just hit the right people. But they all immediately spoke English. Only a few tried to speak Croatian to me right away and then realized that they weren't going to get through to me. But all of them, especially when I was like, it was a server, I was trying to order food. My two friends ordered in English, and I tried to at least say the dishes in Croatian, at least try to pronounce them properly, at least try to say thank you in Croatian, hvala, and please, and whatever. And immediately it went from every single time, the server went from, I wouldn't say grumpy, but a little just disinterested in the interaction to the best service I've ever had, to people like wanting, like so thankful, so happy. The amount of smiles I got, and like genuine smiles of the effort I was putting in, like filled me up. And my friends noticed it too. They're like, holy shit, I didn't realize it meant to them that much. And it makes sense thinking about it, right? Like Croatian is a language, and which like is not a very pervasive language, and it's one that like I think relatively is dying. Um, and it's something that a lot of tourists I think go in and just speak English, and not many make the attempt because of its like the language's stature, right? Like it's one thing to make the attempt with French, but French is so pervasive that like French the French people can be more uptight about it, right? And I'm like, oh, you should try to learn. Croatians don't have that luxury, maybe don't, and so our like it was quite cool, and that goes back to culture, and I think that's going to be my main point of this whole like my whole talk is just those differences, even across very short distances, are incredible, and we have those differences in Canada amongst the same distances, but they're less amplified. Not having those drawn borders makes it harder to see those differences. It becomes a little blurrier. Sorry, there's a fucking massive hornet right here. I just keep an eye on it. So yeah, like it's been a quite interesting thing for me to experience and see. And Zagreb was beautiful, and it was beautiful in a different way. It was less grandiose, and it was more historic, right? Like it felt a lot like I could feel the history. I could feel the recent history because of the wars, right? Like I could see on the buildings. I'm like, yeah, that absolutely had an effect. So yeah, I don't know. I'm doing my best to be as reflective as I can. I'm doing my best to get a new perspective on things. I'm lucky, and I'm realizing this more and more as I'm talking to my peers out here, that I am incredibly worldly already, and I'm leaps and bounds ahead of most people our age. But that's not going to stop me from trying to learn more, trying to experience more. If I can get out of this with a new language, amazing. If I can get out of this with the ability to learn languages faster, just by trying to learn a bunch of different smaller language quickly, amazing. If I can get out of this feeling better traveling on a whim, or just communicating with people in many different ways. So yeah, it's been a good time. I'm feeling happier than I felt in a long time, just at peace with myself. Um, I There's not many things that worry me right now. which is good. I was expecting it to take me longer to get to this point after Prez. Um, I have demons with that. There's people that I dealt with that are people I would rather never see again and never hear from again that I know I will have to. And there's like the fact that Shada's not out here, right? Because she was not able to get out here, so she's back in Calgary and dealing with the time difference and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of things that could have soured this, but they haven't. Just been nice, past the obvious. So, yeah, I don't know. It's it's cool. I'm taking more time to work on projects. I'm also just taking the time to relax, like taking an evening just to sit there and hang out. And I'm sitting on my balcony of my top floor student dorm, like fourth floor, and it's 25 degrees out. It's gorgeous. It's probably gonna thunderstorm tonight, but who fucking cares? With a beer in hand, right? Like I have no cares. Looking at what other destinations I have for the summer, probably Prague next weekend, and maybe Brussels. I found some cheap ass flights out to Brussels, so that may be the way to go. Yeah, yeah. I hope. I mean, this is 10 days later, so you obviously would have started or stopped this job at with like by now, started or not started. So, would love to hear about that. I want to know what's going on with that. I guess I can talk about my job. I'm just going to keep rambling because you just want to hear stuff. So, and it's also been a while since I've done this, so there's a lot to catch up on. Um, Works awesome. My company's young. Everyone like they're all master's students pretty much, or maybe PhD students. They are from all over the world. I have colleagues from Tunisia, from Spain, from Croatia, from Slovakia, from like small town Austria to like fucking wherever, from Iran. So it's cool. It's like all the international master's students are all at this company, and everyone speaks great English. Like the complete company's in English, so I've had no issues communicating. It's quite fun though, when every once in a while they all know because they've lived here for a while. They're like, okay, wait, we only know this word in German, and they'll say it out. Like uh, they said this word earlier. I was having a chat with them about maybe we'll have a Schlottvolt, I think it was. I may be saying it wrong, which is like a slang play on words German term for drinking midweek on like a Wednesday, which I think is hilarious. And I'm wanting to like learn the word because I think having a word for that is hilarious, and I want to use it more because I do it often. But yeah, like literally joining a group of these 26 to 30 year olds and go drinking and have a good time, which sounds awesome. They're fun people. I'm the only person working on my project, which is a company has asked us to develop something, and so I'm the one developing it, taking over from where it was left off. And so I have full flexibility to do what I see fit for it. And I'm writing a full length report on it in terms of the research I'm doing. I like I've fucking taken over the whole Raspberry Pi side. They're like, yeah, our sensor system doesn't really work. Like it's supposed to be a distributed network of Raspberry Pis that all link up to a time series database in Flux, and then put it up on a Grafana visualizer. I'm like, cool. They're like, we have most of it done. It doesn't work. Here's a list of things that aren't working. And I fixed that list in 3 days, 2 days. And I'm like, cool, it's working now. Oh, by the way, here's 8 other things that you thought were working that actually wasn't. And oh, one of your sensors that you think is sensitive enough to detect particulate matter, sure, it's a particulate matter sensor, but it's about 10,000 times, not sensitive enough to detect what you need it to for creating a clean room. Here's all the math in a report form on why it's not sensitive enough. Yeah, so like I've kind of hit the ground running hard. Um, I'm reading papers and getting stuff sorted, and I'm just waiting for access to the lab, like full unadulterated key access. I've been able to go in there a few times to take some measurements and get some devices, but I've my work has slowed down quite drastically until I can get in there, and then I can start working on 3D printing and path planning for the robot arm in the system. But like it's super interdisciplinary, right? Like they hired me for the fact that I'm a Tron who's worked tons with Raspberry Pis and with the robotic path planning, and so like I can do everything in the project. And it's a project that, like, if it was a little bit more intense, you would have 4 different types of engineers on it doing it. But I'm here by myself, so having a good time. Work hours are flexible. Like I leave noon Fridays pretty much every week to catch my train to go somewhere, and that's a-okay. So yeah, like it's a fun time. I'm loving it. It's it's been joyous. Um, Trying to figure out when. Yeah, I don't know. Live access is important. I'll figure when I get that. I'm hoping I'll have it by the end of this week, but until then, we'll see. I started coding fully in NeoVim and trying to do full Vim, so that's fun. I've been enjoying it and getting configuration set up and all of that. So you may hate me for that, but by the end, I'm going to be an absolute god, and you cannot do anything about it. So yeah, and I think my main goal is to continue working on this solar system project in terms of the low-level graphics. It's a project that you may be interested in for the fact of I've done most of the low-level stuff, and the rest of it is just like the math for generating things, like figuring out the procedural generation of stuff. And that can be fun. And I've done most of the buffers and calling GPUs and all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about that because I know that's stuff that you don't like. So that's a thought. I've also had a few ideas for projects. I've been loving the idea of building a harder drive, like what you know, the guy that made like hard drives with Tetris and like internet pings. That sounds fun. And then I just watched a video on him using the rounding error in floating point numbers to make things that require nonlinear functions using only linear functions of floating point, and using the rounding errors to make it nonlinear. And so mathematically, it'd be a full linear function, but practically, it would actually be able to do a full neural net, and so on and so forth. And it's all like that. So it was quite fun, and I like the idea of extending, like getting to the breaking point of like what should be done. And I realized that I had done something similar and in that vein with how I did my Maze Runner neural net project, because I took a multi-class neural net, that multi-class, multi-label neural net, which is in that sense used to like classify things that have multiple classifications, right? Take in an image, take in whatever type of data, and then give it a few classifications. I turned that into it generating images based on what like what was on and off in terms of its classifications. I just took that long string and wrapped it into a 2x4 image, and if it was on, it was a white pixel. If it was off, it was a black pixel, and it became an image. And it worked great because I had it input mazes and output the um, path that you would follow in 2D space to solve it. And I have no papers anywhere online that I was able to find of using that for that. So I'm debating taking that kind of concepts of using dumb models and drawing it to its conclusions, going deeper on it, and maybe writing a cool paper on it, because that would be fun. And like I'm looking at either like debating starting like a fun internet, like a fun tech blog kind of idea where I just write stuff about these projects and go into more depth of them and be fun about it. So I would love to have your input on that. And maybe that's something that we do is we build something like this together where we both write computer science and tech and project stuff. Um, and like I can see us doing both of the idea of like a blog style post of just it being tongue in cheek and whatever, but also like the idea of actually writing full reports. The idea of writing a full technical report on this image generation and testing it and benchmarking and all that stuff seems kind of interesting to me. So I would love to hear your opinion on that. And gives me more urge to write the code that I find fun, right? And hey, and we have a few papers to our name. Should be cool, and right? Maybe try to get them published if we go far enough with that, right? Why not? Um, and they're like, I'm not thinking of doing any real in-depth research. I'm just thinking of shits and giggles, dumb stuff. So yeah, if we're thinking of doing the blog, that gives you full free reign to write the website for it. Right? So have fun with it. But yeah, I want to hear from you. I want to see how you're doing. I miss you. I miss a lot of people, to be fair. That is the one thing I don't have here. So yeah, I'll talk to you later, man. Hope to hear from you soon. Peace.